So up to last lecture, we learned about the basic theories, okay, that we're going to use to study the social programs and social insurance. And today we're going to start our discussion on welfare programs and its effects on labor supply mostly. So probably we will spend this lecture and the next lecture on this topic. Okay, so let me give you first brief review of welfare program in South Korea, and then we're going to move on to theoretical part. Okay, so in general, the welfare programs, okay, including the one in South Korea, have certain common features. Okay. First, potential recipients should apply, meaning that this welfare benefit is not given automatically. Okay? Unless you apply, you wouldn't get anything. Okay? So that's different from, for example, like national health insurance, right? So national health insurance, for example, you don't have to apply anything. Actually, you are entitled to national health insurance, okay? Even if you don't apply anything. You just go to the hospital, then you will be covered. That's the system in Korea, right? This one is different. This one is that, let's say if you think you meet the conditions for welfare benefit, still you have to apply. Okay? So that's first thing. So that means that some people who are potentially eligible for the benefit would not apply. Okay? Those are actually common cases. Okay, the benefit is given usually to poor households or individuals. It may be in cash or in kind. Okay, cash benefit is pretty common, but also there may be in kind benefits. For example, in some countries may give food vouchers that can be used to purchase some food items. Okay. And child care subsidy, some countries give child care subsidy only to poorer households. So if they send their kids to, let's say, child care center, then the government will pay part or all of the child care center cost. Or it can be, I didn't write down, but there may be like a schooling subsidy, educational subsidy. Okay, if the kid goes to school, then the government pays for the tuition for that child. Okay? And medical subsidy is pretty common. So if you go to a hospital and the poorer households may be entitled to some type of subsidy. Okay? So those are the types of benefits. Okay. In our discussion, we will usually think subsidy as a cash subsidy. Well, you can actually think the subsidy in kind may be converted into cash value, and then you can add it to a model. But there may be ways to look at the cash subsidy and in-kind subsidy differently. Okay. Actually, there is a policy debate whether the welfare benefits should be all in cash or should be mix of cash and in-kind benefits. There is a long history of debate about it. And okay, the welfare benefit rule is in general, increase of the recipient's income generally leads to reduced benefit. Okay? That means the poorest households will get the most benefit. And then if the households earn their own income, then in general, the benefit will go down. Okay? By how much? That depends on the rule of individual welfare benefit program, but in all welfare benefit programs, okay, with probably only few exceptions, that generally the increase of own income leads to reduced benefit, or if your income is higher than a certain threshold, benefit will not be paid. Discontinuation. Okay. Okay. Economists usually call this type of reduction of benefit or discontinuation benefit, discontinuation of the benefit, we call them implicit tax. Why is it implicit tax? It's because that if you earn your own income, okay, think of your own income, total income, let's say, for poorer households is own income, right? Plus welfare benefits. Okay. So as I said, in general, if this goes up, this goes down. Okay. So that means that, for example, if you earn, let's say, $10 more, your income would not go up by $10. Why? Because your income, your own income goes up by $10, but let's say that your benefit will go down by, let's say, $5. So in total, your total income go up by only $5, right? So you earned $10, but your income goes up by only $5. Then who get the $5? Who get the rest, the $5? Where is it gone? It has gone to the government's treasury, right? Because they just saved $5. So they have $5 more in their treasury. So in this case, basically these households is like paying tax. Okay? I earned $10, I pay tax $5 to the government. Okay? So that's why we call it's an implicit tax. Okay? So benefit goes down, it's like paying tax. Okay, quite often, in most countries, some programs may require recipients to participate in certain activities. For example, like in Korea as well, that if you are able-bodied, okay, but you are poor, so you get, let's say, certain welfare benefit, then you have to participate in, for example, like a counseling program or some training program, something like it, to increase your employability. And then at the end, the goal of this program is to make the recipient to be productive enough, okay, so that the person can get the job in the labor market on his or her own and get off the welfare benefit roll. Okay. So it's often actually required. So it means that if you do not participate in this program, you will not get the benefit. Okay, that's the general rule. Right? So the whole idea of this is to make people to be more productive so that this person can get eventually earn enough income so they can get off the welfare. Okay? So this is actually very common features of welfare programs in any country. If you look at welfare program in any other country, in any advanced country, for example, you will see all these 4 features, okay, pretty much. There are differences in detail, but pretty much the same. Okay. So in our case, we will look at the Korea's welfare program, okay, so as a specific example, but in theoretical section, okay, the theoretical discussion applies pretty much to almost all welfare programs in general, because welfare programs are so similar to each other. Okay. But details may be different. So with a different detail, you may have some different results, but overall, it should be it should be applicable to almost all programs. Okay, so we have seen the general features of welfare program, and then before we see the Korea's program, we will just briefly look at poverty rate of Korea. So it's because the social welfare is related to poverty issue, and there are different ways of finding the statistics, but let me give you just one simple poverty, actually two statistics. And this one shows the households of 2 or more, excluding households of only 1. First statistic shows the proportion of households whose income is below the minimum cost of living. Okay. Each year, I'm not sure whether they do it actually this year, but each year the government calculates the minimum cost of living. So minimum cost of living means that, you know, if we consider the essential items and its price, the household should have this amount of income to get to live, you know. So this is so this proportion of households income is below this level, and some people actually call it absolute poverty rate. Okay, they are poor in absolute sense. Right? So as you see that in Korea's case, up to 2010, it's around 8%. Now it's a little. Actually, it has been gone down, and it's 6%. Okay. Actually, making a statistic is not that simple enough, because there is a question of what income we should use, right? So if you think about it, like income, your own income, but you pay tax. There is after-tax income. Also, poorer households will generally get the transfer, so get some money from the government or from some organization, so there may be transfer income. So whether you have to include that part or the other part, depending on which income you use, the numbers will be different. Okay? In this case, we include the government transfers, okay, into this. So this is the income is own income plus transfers received by the households. So anyway, it shows that it's going down to about 6%. So if you look at, for example, like own income, then poverty rate is higher. Okay. Okay, so that's the thing. And the second one is the poverty rate is often used actually in many cases. It's income, it's households, percentage of households whose income is below the 50% of the median income. Okay, so median household income is, you can think this is the income that 50% of households is below that income, and 50% of households have income above that part. Okay, this is just in the middle. Okay, so Korea's households income, you just line it up from the lowest to the highest, and then you see the middle. That's the median income. And these households have less than half of that median income. Okay, we call this. People often call this is a relative poverty rate. Okay, so this is an absolute sense in the meaning that, okay, it does not compare to any other households. It compares to a certain level of income that is considered to be a poverty line. Okay. Sometimes people use poverty line for this one. And this one is actually compares to other households. For example, like let's say households get richer in general, then you can obviously see the median income will go up. Okay? Then this number will be higher. Okay? If the households get poorer in general, then this number will go down. So it depends on how the all the other households are doing, these numbers will change. So that's why we call this relative poverty rate. And as you can see, this is around 12%. This number may be different from your slide. Is it? Okay. Because I have seen some different? Same? Okay. So it's around 12%. Okay, it didn't change much. So it means what? 1 out of 10 households in Korea, the household income is below the 50% of the median income. Okay? But absolute level is much lower, about half of the relative poverty rate. So absolute poverty rate is about half of the relative poverty rate. So anyway, so is it high or not? Actually, we have to look at the other statistics. Compared to other countries, for example. Yeah, obviously, theoretically, it is possible to get rid of all the absolute poverty, right? But it is impossible to get rid of relative poverty, right? Because statistically, there is always people who's less than 50% of median. So when you read an article about, let's say, poverty rate in Korea or in any other country, you have to pay attention to what kind of poverty rate they are talking about. Okay, it's either this one or that one. Okay, it's either absolute poverty rate or relative poverty rate. Nowadays, it seems that lots of news report uses actually relative poverty rate, okay, as the poverty rate. I think now it's more and more common to see the relative poverty rate as the definition of poverty rate. But anyway, you have to pay attention to which poverty rate they are talking about. Okay. One good thing is that it seems like poverty rate is going down, okay, in recent years, but let's see. Okay, now what is the Korea's welfare program? Korea's welfare program is called in Korean 기초 생활보장. In English, I don't know whether there is an official translation of this program, but anyway, I'll just call it the basic livelihood security program. I just made a literal translation of Korean term. Okay. So basic livelihood security program of Korea is the welfare program of Korea. So if you go to, if you want to see the more detailed information about this program, you just go to the website of Ministry of Health and Welfare, I think, and you just find out the program for this one. Then they have more detailed description of that one, of this program. Okay, I will give you a little more brief description of the program, but there is more details on the website. But I think you can see it only in Korean, not in any other language. Okay. This program has been in effective since October 2000. So it's about 15-year-old program. Okay. Korea had other welfare programs before that year, but this program itself has started in October 2000. Okay, this program has been pretty much the same for up to July 2015. July 2015 has seen major change in this program in two things. One, before July 2015, the basis of the eligibility condition, I will talk about the eligibility condition in detail a little later, but the basis of eligibility conditions changes from the minimum cost of living to the median household income. Okay? Which means that up to 2015, the Korean program used absolute poverty as a basis to see whether this household is poor or not. But now this program that changes the threshold from minimum cost of living to median household income. Okay, So they look at whether this household has like, for example, like 40% of median household income, that kind of thing. So in a way, they change the basis from absolute poverty to relative poverty. Okay, that's one big change. And second thing is that eligibility conditions differ by allowance. I will give you the list of allowance later. So this program has like a major 4 allowances and some miscellaneous allowances. And up to July 2015, what happened was if you are in simplest term, if your income is below the minimum cost of living, then you are eligible for all the allowances. And if your income is above that level, you are not eligible for any allowance. Okay, it's all or nothing. Okay, but since July 2015, they changed it so that each allowance has its own eligibility condition line. Okay, let me give you what they are later. Okay, so it's much more, in a way, it's more flexible. Okay, so since up to July 2015, it's simpler, but inflexible. But since 2015, it became a little more complicated, but more flexible. Okay. Why did they change this? Okay, I will give you the reason. I mean, you can actually guess the reason later if you look at it. Okay. Okay, what kind of allowances? Actually, why did I allowance? Anyway, there is education allowance, okay, housing allowance, medical allowance. These are the Korean terms. Livelihood allowance. These are 4 major ones. Okay. So education allowance is the money given to the child's education. Okay, it covers like education cost. Housing allowance, it covers some housing cost. Medical allowance, it covers the medical expenses. Okay? And livelihood allowance is the one that we're going to talk about more. This is just a cash allowance to be used as the living expenses. Okay? So these 3 are, in a sense, it's an in-kind. Okay, because it's a specific purpose. But this one is a more general. It's just cash. And childbirth allowance, funerals. Childbirth and funeral allowance is it's just not that big number, small number. So if birth of child, then it needs to cover some medical expenses. And funeral allowance is obviously someone passes away, then they need money to do funeral. So if they are poor, it's difficult to do that. So they get some money, okay, from the government. And self-sufficiency allowance is that there is a self-sufficiency program in Korea, we call it. It's basically, it's like a program that tries to make individuals to work, okay, and find a job. So while they are participating in that program, they will get some money. That's this one. And there are other miscellaneous allowances, actually, smaller ones, like residence tax. So, because in Korea, each household should pay a residence tax, which is like a small sum, but it's a fixed. What do you call it? It's a fixed tax. It's like about 10,000 won per year or something. Okay. So even if you are poor, you should pay the tax. So in Korea, the government pays that tax in behalf of poorer households. Like cable TV subscription, so poorer households will get the subsidized cable TV subscription and subsidized phone subscription, those kind of things. Okay, there are some miscellaneous things. If you look at the ministry website, they give you the list of what kind of money you can get. It's small amount, like in US dollars, like $10, $20 something per month. Okay? Get it? Now, that's the types of allowances that the Korean government give as welfare benefit. And the eligibility conditions. Okay, eligibility conditions, as I said, the primary eligibility condition is whether the household's income is below certain threshold. Okay? And as I said, up to July 2015, it was the minimum cost of living. So each year, the government announces in advance next year's minimum cost of living is this amount for, let's say, households of size 1, size 2, size 3, because obviously the size will make the minimum cost of living increases. So they have all these numbers, and then they compare the household income to that number to see whether this household is eligible or not. But obviously that practice was very controversial, because the thing is that calculation of minimum cost of living is not that easy. Okay? What should be included as in the minimum cost of living, you know? For example, cable TV. Should it be included as the minimum cost of living, or it should be excluded? Okay? Like a smartphone subscription. Should it be included or excluded? Okay? If you think about detail, or what kind of food should be included? Okay? Steak, should it be included or excluded? Okay? If you think about it. So it has been very controversial every year. You know? So there are some people who want that minimum cost of living to go higher. Some people want to go lower. Okay? So in a way, to avoid that controversy, you know, one way of doing it is they just changed it to median household income. Okay? So median household, if you let's say have reliable statistics of household income in Korea, then you can calculate the median household income from the survey, for example. Like Korea conducts that kind of survey every year, so you know, they can calculate it. Okay. So as I said, each allowance has its own threshold. Education allowance, households income below 50% of the median income will get education allowance. And housing allowance, 43% of the median income. Medical allowance, 40% of the median income. Livelihood allowance, this one is has the lowest threshold, 29% of the median income. Okay? So if you look at the numbers, let's say if you're a family of 4, education allowance, your income is, let's say, below 2.2 million won, you get education allowance. And 1.9 for housing allowance, 1.8 medical allowance, 1.3 for livelihood allowance. Okay? So each has its own threshold. Okay, there is another rule. There is one more rule that is still controversial. This rule says the recipient, to be eligible, the recipient should not be able to receive enough aid from parents or children with sufficient means. What does it mean? It means, let's say there are two households. There is a parent's household and there is a child house, the child household. Okay, parental household is elderly parents have no income. Okay, or they have very little income. Let's say they're the mother and father are elderly, so they don't work. They don't work at all. Let's say, or work only some. So their income is way below, let's say, this level. But it turns out that their children are quite rich. Okay, let's say children makes large sum of money. Okay, their income is pretty high. Then what it says is the elderly parents would not get the benefit. Why? Because you have, let's say, children of sufficient means, so that means that you should get the support from your children first before you apply for public support. Okay? So, you know, so one way of saying it is the rule says a family support should precede public support. Okay? So the rule goes like your the support for yourself at first should come from yourself. And then, if you cannot do it, second, should come from your family, immediate family actually. It's only parents and or child. Okay. And if you cannot get enough support from family either, then public support will come in. So that's the, in a way, it's a philosophy behind this rule. Okay. This rule is somewhat controversial because, as you see, that they lump child and parents together as one pool, and then in a way they look at the even if they live separately, the government looks at them as like one big family, and then think that they should help each other. But in some cases, obviously, that it's possible that these rich children, okay, may refuse to give any money to their parents. Okay, so then the parents should actually prove that these children do not give any money to them to them. So that kind of things should happen to be eligible. Okay. So if you look at the, for example, ministry website, there is a way of calculating this and that, when there is exclusion and those kind of things. Okay. So this is somewhat anyway, this rule may be necessary in the sense that if you think about it, if there is no rule like this one, the welfare program may be abused in a way that they just can divide, okay, the households into two, and one household, okay, can get, and then one household can get welfare benefit, okay, the other households. So they, in a way, that they can just live off the government benefit if there is no rule. Let's say they separate their family and give all the money to their children or the parents, and then the other part can get benefit from the government and still probably get the benefit from the other family members. So that, in a way, it's a rule. But anyway, so this is a somewhat controversial rule. As I said, for the education allowance, there is no consideration for potential family support. So this one does not have this rule. Okay? Education allowance, they look at only their own household income. So if the parents, as I said, was raising as a grandchild, okay, and even if the children's household is rich, the grandchild can get the education allowance because the household the child is living is poor. Okay, now if you compare actually to the old program, in the livelihood allowance has the lowest threshold, and this threshold is actually above the old threshold. Okay? So in the sense that in 2015, the welfare program has more people in their role because they basically raised the threshold. Okay, because 29% of the median income is still above the minimum cost of living. Okay? So you will see that actually the number of beneficiaries has increased in 2015 because they just raised the threshold. And second reason that why they increase, why there are more beneficiaries is, as I said, in old program, if your income is above the minimum cost of living, you wouldn't get anything. But now, even if your income is between these, you still can get all these benefits. Okay? So benefit is phased out gradually. In old program, the benefit is just stopped at once. Okay. Get it? Now, Yeah, eligibility is reviewed periodically, obviously. Okay, what is the amount of livelihood allowance? Okay, amount of livelihood allowance is very simple. Minimum income threshold minus own household income. Okay. So, for example, like let's say it's 1.3 million is a threshold. If the household owns, let's say, 500,000 on their own, they get only 0.8 million. One. Okay. So that's the rule. Okay, you have a set income 1.3, and then if your own household income, depending on household income, your benefit will be adjusted automatically. Okay. So benefit amount, let's say in this case, let's say 1.3 million won minus own income. Very simple rule. Actually, this is basically the same as the old rule. The old rule was minimum cost of living minus own income. Just changed it to income threshold. This one has an interesting consequences. Let me show it later. Okay. Last thing is the tagging and worker requirement. Because, okay, what happens is that if you are welfare recipient, they first investigate whether you are physically able to work or not. If you are tagged as able-bodied, then you should participate in self-sufficiency program. Okay? That's what it is. As I said, it's a very common feature. Okay, the Korea is no exception. Obviously, if you are disabled, okay, or very old and elderly, then you don't have to participate in this program. Okay? But if you are young enough and able-bodied enough, then you should be in the program. Okay? Okay, so how much are paid in Korea? It's around 4 trillion won every year up to 2014. And 2015, as I said, because the eligibility condition was relaxed, so there's a big jump in the total benefits paid, 4.7 trillion won. Okay, so it's like a 0.6 trillion won increase. So that's about how much in US dollars? About how much is it? Okay, trillion is so big number I cannot figure out. $1 billion is about 1.2 trillion won. Okay, 1 billion is about 1.2 trillion. So 0.6 trillion, how much? 5 trillion won, 5 billion. So, okay, 500 million. Okay, in terms of dollars, like about $500 million increase in total in this payment. Okay. Okay, and the number of people who get the benefits. Okay, these are the number of households. Okay, around 800 households. Except 2015, as I said, 2015 has seen big increase. Okay? So more than 1 million households. Okay? Probably 1.1 million households in total. Individuals, in terms of individuals, okay? So households, because these are the number of individuals in the households, and as you can see that it has been increasing or decreasing And then 2015 has seen more than 1.6 million people got some benefit. Okay. They have all, I mean, obviously they have different amounts in terms of benefits. Some benefits are very small. Some benefits are relatively large. Okay. But as you can see, there has been big increase in 2015 because of the change in the eligibility rule. And the beneficiary divided population is about 2.5%. It's now about 3% because of the change in the rule. There has been 0.5% percentage point increase in terms of like a beneficiary, the percentage of beneficiary among Korean population. It's about 3%, a little more than 3%, 3.2, 3.3 percentage of how Korean people get the benefit. Okay. Okay, now by age and gender, first thing is that very low for babies, okay, and it goes up to, it's higher in 6 to 11 and 12 to 19. It's because most of them, because the education allowance has, the eligibility condition has relaxed a lot. It's 50% of median income. So the percentage of school children who get the education allowance has increased a lot. Actually, if you look at the old diagram, this number is not that big, but now it's bigger, much bigger. And then what we should look at is that this elderly, okay? So elderly people have very high percentage of beneficiaries, especially the elderly women, okay? So 8% of elderly women are beneficiaries. So that is much, we said that overall it's like a 3.5% something. So more than double of the national average. Okay. So elderly women are the poorest group in a sense in Korea, actually. That is actually a big concern as the Korea becomes, aging. Okay. The poverty problem of the elderly is going to be a big issue in Korea's near future. Okay. And one thing that we should look at is that what are the percentage of people who are working among the BLS recipients? Not that much. Okay. Non-workers are almost 100%, which means that almost nobody who's a recipient of this welfare benefit is working. Okay? And it has been, this percentage of non-workers has been increasing ever since. At first, this is very beginning of the BLS program. So non-workers is below 80%, meaning that about 21 out of 5 actually was working. 1 out of 5 recipients was working. Now it's basically none. Okay, probably 1 out of 100. Okay, what does it mean? Okay, it can mean two things, right? One thing is that probably this program is so good at finding, okay, the very poor people who cannot work, okay? So only those people who cannot work get the benefit. That's one way of looking at it, right? So their selection, screening of the recipients is so good, so these people who may be able to work but still get the benefit, we just screened out. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. However, the other way of looking at it is that some people may get the benefit and stop working. Okay? For example, like these 20% of people next year, some of them stop working and then stop working and then stop working. So like one way of looking at it is that not the screening got better, but just the people, just when they get the benefit, they just stop working. Okay? So which one is true, actually, we never know. Okay? But we will see later that what could be the relationship between the program and the work choice. Okay. But anyway, so this is the case that now almost no one is working. One way of looking at problem is because that lots of them are so elderly or very young. Okay. So this is a pretty small number, like 1.1 to 3%. Okay. That may be the reason. Okay, but we never know. Okay. So the family income distribution of BLS recipients is, as you can see, it's, in general, it's pretty low. Okay. So this is monthly income. So about 1/4 has no income. Okay, no, it's own income, no income, and the small, this is 200K. So it's in less than $200 per month, their own income. 14%, it's a 400K, 30. So if you add them up, it's about 3/4. Okay? So 3/4 of the Korean recipients, they earn on their own less than $400 per month. Okay, that's very small amount. But still, there are some households who earn more than 1 million won per month. Okay, that's about 10%. Right? Well, yeah, for large households, if you get 1 million, still you can get eligible. No, you see 1.3 million is the threshold. So it's possible that 1 million won still eligible. Okay. So anyway, what it shows is that there is almost nobody is working, and most of our households obviously have very small amount of own income. Okay, then how long they are on the beneficiary? It's actually very important statistic. From the, let's say, government point of view, welfare program is best to be a temporary help to the poorer households, right? The best scenario should be that the households get poor, they get aid from the government, and for a while, but while they are getting the aid, they should develop, okay, they should find their way of supporting themselves and get out of the welfare, okay? That should be the best way that, that should be the ideal way, that the welfare benefit should be temporary. And in Korea's case, as you can see that lots of them are actually very long-term welfare recipients, more than 10 years. Okay? So about 1/4 are long-term recipients. Okay? In a way that then 3/4 are short-term recipients. Okay? So it doesn't look that bad in the sense, but this one is very high, 2015, because eligibility condition has been relaxed. So lots of people got into the welfare program for the first time in 2015. So that's why. So if you look at all the statistics, okay. So what it is that it's kind of bimodal in a sense that large proportion of households are either very short-term or long-term. Relatively, like 4 to 6 years is a small percentage. So it's either like 1 to 3 years or like 7 or more longer years. Okay? It's bimodal distribution. I think it's very common in most countries, welfare recipients. It's either very temporary or very long-term. If you have more and more long-term recipients, we should be concerned. Okay? If you're temporary, it's maybe okay. Mostly temporary, it's maybe okay. But it's long-term, it's going to be a problem. Okay. Now, one last program I want to include as the welfare program is a basic pension program in Korea. It's for the elderly. It's not considered to be a welfare program in Korea, but the idea is that basically the same. Persons of Korean nationality ages 65 or older with the assessed income below the 70th percentile among the elderly population is eligible. So if you are poorer than top 30% of the elderly households, you are eligible. So in that sense, it's a welfare program. The threshold seems to be quite high, but still, it's a welfare program. Okay? So relatively poor individuals get the money. A difference is that I don't think you have to apply, is it? I should check. I'm not sure. Okay, so how much is the 70th percentile? In 2016, that was 1 million won per month for single-person households, and 1.6 million won per month for married couples. Okay, so it's they look at only the elderly individual's income only. Okay, so let's say there is a single elderly person whose income is below 1 million won per month. Okay, then they will get the benefit. If it's couple, 1.6. Okay, the income is not exactly the income. It's an assessed income in the sense that it's a sum of the imputed asset income. So if you have assets, if the elderly household has assets, let's say he or she has a car, house, and that should be included as a part of income. They have a way of computing it. And then if they have their own earnings above 560,000 won per month, and 70% of that income included as the assessed income. Okay. So which means that if you work and earn some money, still you can get the benefit. Okay, what is the benefit amount? It's not that large actually. So 200,000 won per month. That's the maximum. Okay. It's not that large. And the amount is lower if the person has a higher income or married couples, both of whom are eligible for basic pension. So let's say one elderly couple, each of the couple is eligible, but they don't get the sum of two, they will get actually reduced amount. Okay? So there is a way of calculating. You should look at the website to see how it works. Okay? But anyway, the idea is pretty much same as the welfare program. Okay? Just this welfare program is applied only to the elderly population. Okay? Got it? Okay, so we have looked at the welfare programs in Korea. As I said, that this program is specific to Korea, but it shares many common features with welfare programs in other countries. Now, let's look at the theoretical analysis. Okay? Okay, what we are concerned with in this particular theoretical analysis is how the welfare program affects individuals' choice of labor supply. That has been actually the traditional topic of about the welfare programs in economics. But there are other public finance issues as well, but I'm not going to cover the public finance issues. So we will look at only the labor market issues regarding the welfare programs. Okay, what you're going to do is that we're going to use work leisure choice model. Okay, we learned work leisure choice model last week, so we're going to use it now. Okay. And the work leisure choice model is very useful when we analyze this particular case. Now, to introduce welfare program into work leisure choice model, first we assume there is no non-labor income. Okay. Actually, we can assume there is non-labor income, but actually it doesn't matter much. But to make it simple, we assume there is no non-labor income. Okay, it should be a reasonable assumption for especially poorer households. Probably they have not few assets anyway, So no non-labor income. Okay, now the thing about the budget line, that's a problem. Okay, how the budget line works. Okay, the budget line income is own income, total income, what I mean, plus benefit. Okay? So this part we know. So own income, because there is no non-labor income, is just W times H. Okay, so earnings only. Then the benefit, okay, in general, we can write the rule of the benefit this way. G minus T times WH. Okay, why? What it means is simple. G is the maximum income you can get. If you have no income, you get G. In Korea's case, the livelihood allowance was, if I use that for, let's say livelihood allowance, for family of size 4, then if your own income is 0, you get 1.3 million won. Okay? So that's G. This is G. Okay. This is the amount you would get with 0 income. And you have your own earnings, WH, right? And your income, your benefit will go down. By how much? Okay, to introduce that one, we use T. T is the implicit marginal tax rate. So what does it mean? It means that, for example, let's say the rule says you get G if you have no income, okay? But if your income, but you have own income, WH, let's say the rule says your income, your benefit will be just G minus WH. Okay? Think about it, G minus WH. So it means that if that's the Korea's rule. If you earn, let's say in this case, 1 million won, or 1 million is too much. 0.5 million won, okay? Then your allowance would be only 0.8. Okay? Because they just deduct 0.5. Okay, now think about it. You earned 0.5 million won by yourself, but your total income doesn't change anything, right? Your total income doesn't change. If you earned nothing, you get 1.3 million. If you earn 0.5 million, you still get 1.3. Why? Because the government will reduce the benefit by exactly 0.5. Okay? Who get that 0.5 million? The government gets the 0.5 million. We call it implicit tax. What is the tax rate? What is the tax rate? It is 100%, right? You earned 0.5, then all of it goes into the government's pocket, right? Now, this one is a bit implicit in the sense that the government does not take away your 0.5, just the government gives you 0.5 less. Okay? The same thing anyway. The government will have 0.5 in their own pocket, right? Before they spent 1.3, now they spend only 0.8, so they have 0.5 in their own pocket. Okay? The money is basically implicitly transferred from the recipient to the government. That's why we call it implicit tax. It's not explicit, it's just an implicit tax. Okay?
So the difference between the implicit tax and the amount of G is negative tax?
Amount G is negative tax?
I mean, you said 1.3 million is G.
Yeah, this is G.
Own income is implicit tax.
No. Implicit tax rate is 100%. That's what I mean. Okay. So in this case, implicit tax is 0.5 million. Okay. But let's say you can change the rule. Let's say the government says we will deduct the benefit only by half of your own income. Okay, if you earn, let's say 0.5, we lower the benefit not by 0.5 but by 0.25. Okay, that means that you will keep your 0.25, half of your own income, into your own pocket. So what is the implicit tax rate then? That's 50%, right? After paying the government, you have 50%. So they can change that implicit tax rate. Okay? That we call T. Okay? So as you can see, that T is a pretty important policy decision. In Korea, T is 1. Okay? If your own income, then the benefit will simply go down by your total of your own income. So that's T is 1. But let's say if they change it, okay, only half, then T is 0.5. Okay? If they deduct it only by 30%, then implicit tax rate is 30%. Okay? So by how much the government deducts it relative to their own income is the implicit tax rate. Okay? And 0 means that if your income is enough to, this one is above G, then you will get nothing. Okay? You don't pay anything to the government anymore. So which means what? Which means the budget constraint becomes this. Okay? While you are getting your benefit is 1 minus T WH plus G. You just WH plus G minus T times WH. So 1.1 minus T WH plus G. So you can clearly see that you keep only 1 minus implicit tax rate. Okay? Your implicit tax rate 50%, you keep only 50% of your own income. 70%, you get only 30% of your own income plus G. And WH, if your income is high enough to make benefit to be 0, then your own income will be your budget. Your income gonna be WH. Okay, so as you can see, that the welfare program should not make you poorer. Okay. So your income should be lower than WH. Okay, cannot make you poorer. Obviously, that's the idea. So if you use a diagram to show that, it's actually pretty simple. First, if you have no income, you're on your own, you get G. Okay, so that's one. And then if you have your own income, the slope, look at the slope, is minus 1 minus TW. How do you look at it? Just think of budget line. This is the equation for the budget line. Okay? So the equation for the budget line is just G plus 1 minus, it's not exactly the equation for budget. This is the equation for the income. Okay? And then as you can see that as you work, your income goes up by 1 minus T times W. Okay? So this is, we call this is effective wage rate. Okay? Even if your wage rate is, let's say, $10 per hour, if the implicit tax is 50%, what you get in your pocket is only $5. Okay? That's your actual tax, after tax. And that's your actual wage rate. After tax wage rate is the wage rate you care about. Okay? Because you should pay the tax. So this is your wage rate, real wage rate. W is the $10 that you get to your pocket. It's not the wage rate you actually get. It's 1 minus. So in that sense, your budget line changes to the slope of 1 minus t times w, not the w. But once you reach the point where that the big becomes 0, then this is your budget line. Okay? So see that there is a kink. Okay? 2 kinks. So the budget line here is TJBWT. Okay? Get that? So before just a simple one line now, but there is a kinks TJBWT. That should be the budget line after the welfare program is introduced. Okay. One thing interesting that to see is that if you're a welfare recipient, let's say you are around here, okay? First, your income is always higher than the income prior to the welfare program. Okay? Your income is somewhere here. It's always higher than the income without the welfare program. Okay? You can see that. That's first. Second, your wage rate is lower. Right? The slope is lower. Your wage rate is lower simply because you pay part of your own income as implicit tax. Okay? So 2 things you have to keep in mind. That your income is always higher, but your tax wage rate is always lower. Okay? Where should Okay, so let me briefly talk about 2 more slides and then that's it. One is that if the implicit tax rate is 100%, 1-to-1 deduction, okay, then this should be the budget line. Okay? So, for example, if the government reduces the benefit amount by exactly its own amount, okay, then budget line will have this flat part. Okay, meaning that, for example, in this case, your income is always 1.3 million. Okay, no matter what. Okay, that's the. So in this case, the implicit tax rate is 100%. Wage rate is 0. Okay, 0. And second special case is the case where that the government pays the benefit only to those without any income. Okay? So if you have your own income, the government stops paying it. Okay, what kind of program is this? For example, disability program. Disability program is the program for disabled individual. And one way of looking at this disability is that this person is able to work, then this person is not disabled. Okay? So if the person works, then this person cannot get the disability benefit. So if that's the case, if you are not working, you get disability benefit. But if you're working, the benefit stops. Okay? And then you have only one spike here. Okay? And in this case, what is the implicit tax rate? 0? If you start working, your total income will be actually, compared to not working, working gives you lower income, right? Okay. So what is the implicit tax rate? More than 1. Your income actually go down if you work because you lose disability benefit. Okay. So it is possible that the implicit tax is more than 100%. But this is very special case. Okay. So we are not going to concern too much about this one, but it's a special case. Okay, that's it for today, and then we will continue our discussion next week.